The iTunes algorithm, no one's going to take you from Wicked to an ISIS recruitment video. But YouTube might, you know. Welcome to Not Right Now, the podcast about parenting through all of this. We have a guest today. Her name is Amanda Hess. Amanda is a writer at large for the New York Times, covering what it's like to be alive today. She is a parent, which really makes you feel alive, and she's an author. Her first book was called The Second Life: Having Child in the Digital Age, which is now in paperback. It is a blend of memoir, reportage, and criticism about the culture of new parenthood, originally published in 2025. We talk about everything and all that stuff, and also what we let our kids watch in this conversation. So please join us.
How are things going with
great.
you? What is the state of your family for this at this moment in the summer?
Yeah, well, I have a 3 and a 5-year-old. The 5-year-old is ending kindergarten soon, like in a
Wow.
couple of weeks. And we're entering the summer. I'm in New York. It's really hot here. Where are you guys?
I'm met outside Chicago. I'm in Evanston.
I'm in Colonial Williamsburg. My children ended school yesterday. It's also very hot here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Nice.
Kind of. It's
Summer
great.
sucks.
I literally said to one of the other parents at the bus stop yesterday while we were getting ready to traditionally silly string the kids as they got off the bus, I believe I said out loud, I can't wait for school to start again, just
I
so they
know.
could go back. And summer's fun. We have all kinds of super chill 1980s era activities we do here or don't do. And yet, it's a lot.
Yeah.
What's the plan with
Yeah.
a 3 and a 5-year-old? I've been there. It's not great.
I mean, I think the main problem is that there are very few places that accommodate a 3 and a 5-year-old, so they go to different locations during the summer. And the 5-year-old does a wide variety of things. And the 3-year-old goes to a park daycare,
Yeah.
which is great.
It
But
works.
it's tough. It's tough to get them together anywhere.
It gets much better. I promise. I think one of the biggest wake ups for me in terms of like how much better it can get for a parent was when my kids started changing themselves after the pool, taking themselves to the locker room and getting themselves dressed.
Oh my
Like,
God.
I mean, it gets just things happen, things like, but you know, at the same time, I'm the one who's like, when I see a 3-year-old, I'm like, just like a little walking baby.
know.
That's hardly even a
I
person.
know. Yeah. He still, he says things incorrectly. It's really cute
on to
and
that.
sweet. Okay.
Yeah. No. We made a blanket decision very early that we're never going to correct any of those things. So some of these things have really stretched into like 7th grade algebra, which
I love it.
I'm fine with.
Yeah. It's really
Yeah.
sweet.
And for the kindergartners, it can be like a big, graduation thing. How do they handle it at that kid's school?
Yeah. I don't know. They have some kind of stepping up ceremony, and I'm not sure what that entails, but he's really had a graduation type ceremony at every year of professional care he's had. He was like stepping up in daycare.
Yeah.
So
Good.
just
And
an
great.
excuse to put a baby in the graduation
Sure.
cab or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. It is. My older son graduated from 8th grade a couple weeks ago, and it was such a year long of extravaganzas. And I couldn't help think about how he's going to be a freshman next year, and no one will give a single flying fuck about him, and he's just going to be bottom of the totem pole.
It's so true.
Yeah,
I-
I'm kind of
Yeah.
happy.
Claire, I told you the story. Mine are, what day is it? June 11th, 11, 12, 13. And my 13-year-old, his first week is 6th grade. Going into 6th grade, you're like, oh, I'm going to be with the big kids. So here it's, elementary and middle school, 6, 7, 8. And a week into it, he was like, holy fuck, I'm with the big kids. There was a real course correction there.
Yeah.
And I imagine
Yeah.
if I'm remembering high school correctly, that's exactly how it's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a memory of my first day of high school. My friend and I sitting at the wrong table. Has ever happened to you? Sitting at the wrong table in the cafeteria that was like the football players' table. It was so humiliating.
Where was this?
This was in Phoenix, Arizona. Big football school or something. And I don't know. I think so. I think I feel like having your own kids, in a way, I became much more comfortable with myself. But also now that my kids are like encountering social dynamics, it's a little bit triggering.
Mhm.
You know, I'm like trying not to apply my experience onto them, but there's
Yeah.
something that's just very enduring and classic about those
Yeah.
dynamics
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah. Yesterday, my son and his friends had a yard sale and lemonade stand, which, like, independent of me, is adorable. I was so stressed out because I was on deadline. And then also, I was cooking 7 racks of ribs and it was 100 degrees out, and the kids were coming in and out. And I had no choice but to be completely hands off. And except for, like, I did note, like, they originally wanted to charge $3 for a glass of lemonade. And we were like, not only is that too much, no one has $3. But
Anymore.
but my son was like worried that his friend was mad at him because he won't take any money from the sale. And, I was sort of caught between being like, knowing what it's like that panicky feeling of wondering whether you're in trouble with your friend and wanting to make it right, but also being like, well, fuck it. Like, don't worry about him, and no time to worry about him. But
Yeah.
and like the business
Yeah.
people got their things sorted out. But yeah. So Amanda, I don't know if I knew that you're from Phoenix. My husband's from Glendale. He went to Brophy, if you know any Brophy people.
Oh. I don't think I know Brophy people, but of course, I know of Brophy.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
He loves Arizona minus Phoenix. He hates Phoenix and loves the rest of the states.
Claire, could I go
Yeah.
back for a moment? Do you have a first day, week of high school-ish story, like sitting at the wrong table like a monster?
Well, let's see. I remember, first of all, going clothing shopping with my mom, and this was the 90s, like going to the Limited and excitedly getting a bunch of crushed velvet clothes and like stacked heel shoes, and
Mhm.
forgetting that school doesn't actually start in the fall, it starts in the summer. So all my clothes were wrong. And there were a bunch of things, but the summer before, like right before school, I did a version of summer camp that's sort of like a bigger kid where the teens are separated from the little kids. And it's a lot of hormones and like heartache and, and I remember making friends at that camp. And then one girl kind of completely blew me off, like the first day of school. And, that's high school, I think. And so, yeah, but those are the memories we make. That's the reason why you want to get out and go to college somewhere else. And then if you're like me, you come right back home to the same town and then put your kid in the same school and see what unfolds for him.
Oh my God, the exact same school, that is like a different level,
Yeah.
of like actually being in the environment, like back in the halls.
Yeah. I
I
think,
had an experience with middle school where I moved to Arizona from Washington State, and in Washington State, elementary school goes through 6th grade. So I moved after elementary school, but in Arizona, middle school starts in 6th grade. So I was starting 7th grade as like a fresh middle schooler, like still a child.
Fresh meat.
And everyone else there was like a
sophisticated.
grown up who had like already had a year of middle school.
They'd been
It
abroad.
was horrible. Yeah. I
That's right.
know. Yeah. It felt like that.
Yeah. No, it was a wild wake up call because, and I'm sort of preparing my son for it, but I know I can't. But he, like me, went to a very small Catholic school, and I'm laying the groundwork for you're going to be around people who have had kids already, who can't afford breakfast, who don't speak English. And I think he thinks I'm shaming him. And I'm like, no,
A little bit.
well, a little bit. Yeah. But also just that you don't even know what you don't know yet, and you have no idea. He thinks he's poor because we don't take him skiing. So I'm like
Yeah.
excited for him to, kind of wake up and see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be
Um,
interesting.
Amanda, what have you been working on lately?
It's a good question. I'm starting to think about writing another book that is, my first book was about birth, essentially. And I've been doing more work and thinking about the technology of death and people who are trying to avoid that. And so I'm just starting to think about that. So I'm doing a lot of reading about cryonics and stuff like that. It's such a fun. I've only written one book, but it's just such a fun part of it where you're like just trying to start figuring out what it is that you want to do. So that is my big personal project that I'm starting thinking about.
What are some threads you're picking up or themes? Because I think I mean, that we know in pop culture about the billionaires who are trying to cheat death or have their plan to go, live in their escape pod island or whatever. And, or like the Schadenfreude of that. There's some group like, wealthy separatist group that is now falling prey to the HOA rules and they're infighting and we all love it. What else is coming up or what else are you discovering that people haven't been talking about yet?
I mean, I think the thing that interests me is it's such a human story. There are the billionaires who are interested in it and potentially funding it, but then there are the people who've actually been trying to do it for many decades, trying to do something that is not possible, at least right now, and going to these great lengths to retrieve dead bodies, bring them into a place where they can be frozen, coming up with essentially experimenting on corpses, all under the intention of cheating death in some way. And the reason that I've become sort of interested in them recently is, I mean, there's a place that is in Phoenix that I grew up close to that does this. And so I'm able to sort of visit them when I visit my parent who are getting older. But also, I don't know if this happened to you when you had kids. Part of it is because I had a kid who had the medical condition, I think, but I think it's just the nature of creating a life. I just started thinking about death so much.
All the time.
My own death. Like all of a sudden, I'm afraid of dying. I don't want to do that. I never want to die. I'm not going to freeze myself, but I feel like I think about my mortality as much as these people. It's just that they're doing something incredibly bizarre and I'm just stewing in it or whatever.
Which is healthier,
And so,
obviously.
I mean, I guess I feel like there are many ways to sort of live in the denial of death happening. But my 3-year-old so my 5-year-old started talking about death. And then because he's talking about it, my 3-year-old is also talking about it. And he has a different sort of, I think, sense of what's going on with that. But at night, he's been like, as I tuck him in, he's said, I don't want to die. I don't want to die when I'm old. Who's going to make me die? Can you protect me from dying?
Oh,
And so I'm lying to him because I want him to
go to sleep.
rest.
Yeah.
I want him to get a good night's sleep.
Sure.
Yeah.
And on some level, that is my job to protect him from dying. That is most of what you do with a 3-year-old when you're like walking down the street,
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, no, I can't protect him from dying and he's going to die. And in a sense, that's because of me. Because I hated him,
Wow. Well,
It's just stuff I've been thinking about.
yeah, no, just the light stuff.
It's great.
I have this, I don't know if I have it in me to write an essay about it, but I have been thinking a lot because I'm in the phase of everyone's parents are starting to die now. And we're seeing the bad ways people can die or the limbo you can be between starting to age badly and death and how long that can be. And how we adult children are so fed up with those parents of ours who put off talking about it, put off planning it, and leaving us with the bag. So I joke a lot that I was like, our generation, we are all going to set ourselves on ice floes like when we're 70 years old because we just don't want to do that to our
Viking
kids.
funeral. Yep. Here's
Yeah,
the
we'll
last
do it to
cash. I don't
ourselves.
want any assets. I don't just
70 sounds a little early to me.
Yeah. But also you could still go out looking good, and of your own accord. I envision our kids being like, but you seem good. And we're like, yeah, remember me this way instead of shitting myself, and being mad at you because I can't hear you and yet also refusing to get hearing aids and things like that. But we'll see. I'm also in a very bitter, fragile state of life right now. So maybe I will forget all this in a couple of years and be like back to cryogenics and trying to get my dog to live forever.
Today, based on parenting and life today, if you could freeze and like better than suspected odds of them being reincarnated, you got to pick between husband, 2 boys, and Ollie.
Who is going to stay with
Yeah,
me?
you can only do one. Yeah.
Well,
Obvious.
you think I'm going to say
It's totally obvious.
well, you think I'm going to say the dog.
Don't lie
because
for the people.
He loves me best. But I don't know if I say enough how handy my husband is. And so that is very attractive in a person. So I have to think about it for a long time. And he just wrote an article for my newsletter. So he's giving me free content. So right now,
All right.
I
It
know.
sounds like you're making excuses.
Yeah,
I know
oh,
that there's of everyone in my family, nobody's picking me. And that's fine. And I've come to terms.
The dad is the first to go. I'm sorry.
No questions asked. No, by the way, if there's a sniff of a problem, they're like, well, we better put him out of his misery. I'm like, I just pulled a hamstring. They're like, well,
yeah.
no.
I met this guy like through a story I was writing who is, I believe he's 62, and his mother just died when she was 100. And I was like doing the math, and I was like, oh, so if I had my 3-year-old at the age I did, if I died at 100, then I would get to live to see him when he's 62. And that sounds good. I want to know what's going on. I want to know like what he's up to, still enjoying his life or whatever, hopefully.
Agreed.
But obviously that's not what most 100.
No.
That's not what most journeys to 100.
There's a really great
like-
video of Chris Martin from Coldplay did that song with Dick Van Dyke for his 100th birthday, I guess. I know, it's a lot of weird words in one sentence. It's actually really lovely. It's just Chris Martin playing a piano with Dick Van Dyke at 100 dancing in his backyard. It's really beautiful. It was like 2 or 3 months ago. Might have been a year or two ago. Anyways, at one point in sort of the longer version that's semi-documentary, one of Dick Van Dyke's kids asks him if he can get in the pool or something like that or turn on some lights, and you realize his kid's probably 80 who is asking him. So
Yes.
it was
Oh.
when you do the math of it, you're like, well, hold on.
There's
Yeah.
an Onion meme that was going on just called Old Man's Son, Also Old Man. And I don't know why that made me laugh so hard. Amanda, I want to ask you, I kind of added this last minute, and maybe you don't want to deal with this, but you are an online person, and you are one of those people who like studies the internet in a way that I just think is really intelligent and has good analysis. And I have to ask, and Quinn, I know you don't know what I'm talking about, but I will fill you in. Don't worry. But have you followed at all Jenny Mullen? She is the ex-wife of, oh my gosh, who was the guy? Of Jason Biggs. She has been in the internet lately because she was writing hardcore, what they call boy mom material about like how she hoped for. You know what I'm talking
Not
about?
putting
Yeah,
that in
I
the
see.
search
Yes,
engine.
I did see that. Where basically she wants to marry them.
Yeah, and she wants to marry them. She said she said that she was like mad that one of her kids' girlfriends is not even prettier than she is. And she posted a photo of herself kind of straddling her son on the bed. And then she also had,
Excuse me?
yeah, I'm not kidding. Look, you can look this up.
No.
And
Fuck no.
yeah, you probably shouldn't. And then she also, and this part I almost don't even want to criticize. Like, there's a grain of truth in this, but not something I would ever put in writing. But she said your firstborn son is your most toxic boyfriend, something like that. And I wrote something about that a long time ago about how there is some truth, I think, about how it is like a high school relationship where you're like, oh my God, look at this acorn he brought me. He thought of me, and like when they write down something like mom likes to sleep, you're like, he knows. But yeah, I just wanted to know how much you have been in the realm of boy mom discourse, because it sort of chaps my head.
Right, 'cause I had 2 boys, which I didn't think was like possible. I don't know. When I was having kids, I was like, I'm a girl. They're going to be girls. I just didn't even think about the possibility that I would have like a boy, much less 2. And they're completely individual people, which is wild. But it is my 3-year-old he acts like he's married to me,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm responsible for that. I think he's
It's
initiating
just because you're a
that,
good
right?
mom.
But that's like a little joke. You know what I mean? I think discussing the way that a teenage girl looks and comparing her to literally anyone else, especially yourself, is like this so inappropriate and awful.
Yeah.
Leave her alone.
No, absolutely. And leave him alone. My kids are old enough to say don't. Like, I took a video, like a picture of my younger son holding hands with his dad. And he was like, don't put that online. And I was like, I'm not, don't worry. I respect those kinds of things, and that, more than about her than about him. I'm like, did he really give you the go ahead to write that kind of thing? But I try to do better about not listening to the internet or letting, because whatever you are, just being a parent. And I think you've written about going down like anti-natalist, like Reddits and things like that. It's not hard to find people who like just, you're already behind the 8 ball for having kids, period, let alone bringing them
Try
to
doing
a
it in the
restaurant.
climate era. Like the shit you hear.
Taking them on an airplane, all the things that you shouldn't do. And the boy mom stuff, you're like, okay, you crazy ones are making the rest of us look bad. And it's hard enough out here alone. I have a real connection and affinity for other moms who are like the only girl in the house, because you're like, we are toiling and being constantly disrespected, and then the internet thinks that we are like we think our boys can do no wrong, and I'm like, no, I think they do
All
plenty
wrong.
wrong, all wrong, constant wrong.
Yeah, yes, and it worries me. I mean, this is not something I haven't written about having boys, and I feel like I don't want to because it feels impossible, but it's something that I talk about with people all the time because we're starting to get into a place where there's violence, there's just really tough anger, emotional issues. I know this can happen with girls too, but I have this experience sometimes where people who haven't read my work and learn that I have boys, they're like, "Oh, your boys will be so they'll be like feminists," and I'm like, Listen, I have so little control over these boys. I wish I could just program them with
Sure.
whatever. It doesn't work like that, and it's a struggle for sure. But whenever there's a word attached to mom and it circulates online, that's bad news. It's
Yeah,
like boy mom, wine mom, medical mom. It's like then you're getting into bizarre territory. I
that's
feel
true.
like
That's
it
true.
must be avoided.
One internet thing I stumble upon that makes me laugh is that I'll see sometimes content probably geared towards my algorithm that'll be like, living with boys is like ... And of course, it's a lot of stumbling, like fighting and messes and, chaos. And then I see in the comments, like indignant moms of girls who are like, my girl is even worse than this, and getting like offended that the girls are getting written out of this discourse of being bad, which I find kind of funny that you would be like mad that you're like, don't forget my kid is just as bad as yours. And you're like, okay, I still don't believe it, but I guess if you want to think that way, sure, go ahead. But it's a weird style of competition.
Yeah. I mean, this is like my privilege as someone who's invited to go onto podcasts, but like, I don't remember the last time I commented on something on the internet. Probably stuff I like wrote about commenting on some things on Reddit anonymously in my book. And that's probably the last time that I did that, like during my pregnancy, where I was just like, I need to say something to this anonymous person that I must express. And I feel like at peace that I haven't had that urge in a long time.
Really? Are
Yeah.
you are offline in terms of any parenting spaces online currently, or what do you take part in?
The thing is, I think my life would be better if I just got off Instagram, and I can't. I've been like unable to. I've set up all of these various strategies to try to do that, and I keep going back to it. And there's always a part of me that's, oh, I should, promote my book or something. But that's not really it. I think I'm just A, addicted to it, and B, my social life is too embedded in it. I would need to transfer all of these acquaintance to friend relationships to text or whatever before I got rid of it. But the worst thing is that means that I'm then served all of this content. And even though I go in and delete all of this stuff in my algorithm, it learns, it knows immediately again, because it's just feeding on the same data. That I have kids, that I have had medical experiences with kids, anything that they know, I'm going to watch and maybe watch again. But I've started to try to train my algorithm to think that I am a lesbian, which has been really great for the content. Just watching gay content, watching the reel over again, liking, sharing.
They say
That's been a really good
you're
thing.
building it brick by brick, but like and you're in an interventionist way. Like no, we're going this way.
Yeah.
It's smart.
Yeah. If Instagram thinks that you're not interested in men, I think it respects you more. That's my sense so far. It's
That
not
wouldn't
giving you
surprise me.
just the absolute worst
I'm trying to think
it
like
has to
safe.
offer.
Again, I don't want to assume the worst, but I'm trying to think of, you remember at the end of Ghostbusters when he's okay, don't think of anything, and then he says I tried to think of like the safest thing possible. Now I'm
Yeah.
like, do I want to train my algorithm for like trail mix? But then how can that go bad? Like,
Gardening. I think gardening can the
garden
gardening
native
will be
garden
bad?
plants, great. But then
Yeah.
I feel like
Trail mix is going to get into some kind of like adventure, misadventure type of content or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I would like to train that because my Instagram thinks I like baseball, like being a baseball mom more. And it always makes me mad because I get served ads for shirts that say baseball moms are the prettiest moms or like, number one fan, white high
So bad.
heels with red stitching. Awful. Just awful stuff.
Fuck, it's so
Oh
bad.
my God.
Ring girl.
I'm definitely gonna order you that shirt.
Well, no,
Um,
don't you dare. I'm cutting up. Do you remember, Amanda, like, because I don't know if the chronology, I feel like the origin story, at least as it's presented in the book, and like redirect me if I'm wrong, but that you knew that you were going to have a child with a medical complication or I don't know what the best way is, but a syndrome, and your doctor told you not to look it up. And that's the very first thing that you did, of course. And it led you down a wormhole of sort of how the internet can both help and also destroy a parent. Am I getting that right, or is that not quite?
Yeah.
Okay.
can I ask a quick?
this
Can
is
I ask a
my- sorry,
contextual
go on.
question? Just because I
Mhm.
think this helps. I had my kids again 15 years ago. We had all IVF and interesting, but the point is the internet was very different then. What year was this for you? Like,
This was 2020.
okay. I just want to frame that.
Yeah. So in 2020, I was pregnant for the first time, and everything was like presented as normal until I was like 7 months pregnant. And then I had an ultrasound that was abnormal. The doctor saw something strange on the ultrasound that he suspected was this syndrome. It's called Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome. And that's what it was. But it could have been like a variety of things. And so it took like another 4 weeks during when I was pregnant to actually get a diagnosis. And during that time, there were like all sorts of theories that were presented by various doctors, which I would like immediately the deepest Google you
Do you
can
know how much
imagine.
Googling you can do in 4 weeks?
I mean, yeah, it was so awful, but it really felt like it was like the only thing I could control was information. And if I somehow figured it out, like through, medical Googling, then at least like when I showed up at the doctor, I would be prepared. It felt awful for the doctors to always seem to know more than I did when they're like looking inside of my body. And I felt, I don't know, I could control it. And then also, not knowing what this was and having a really wide range of theories, anything from it's literally nothing, it's like a shadow, it's a trick, it's not anything, to the brain is like severely underdeveloped. It meant that I
That you
wanted
went
to
through
be able
that.
to prepare, if I wanted to choose to get an abortion or something. So I really wanted to know what it was. And then ultimately, we figured out that it was this syndrome. It's called Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome. It's an overgrowth syndrome, which means that parts of your body grow at different rates. And then knowing that, at first, like when I heard that something was wrong, I felt very lost and devastated. And then after 4 weeks of not knowing, getting a diagnosis, especially a diagnosis for something that was not catastrophic, was like so wonderful. It was like just such a great thing and so helpful to my son for us to have that diagnosis before he was born. But it made me really think ultimately, critically about what had happened to my relationship with the internet as I became a parent and how much more intense it was than it had ever felt before, except for maybe, when I was using AOL during puberty, It was like not since then that it had seemed so central to building my identity or understanding what my life was going to be like.
Did you think beforehand, before you gotten pregnant, did you ever think, like, knowing all that you did know in your critical mind, did you sort of think, I won't let that happen to me? Like, I will stay strong and not be informed by, disinformation or opinions or things like that? Or were you correct, like ahead of time? Did your idea of your relationship with like how you would be as a parent online, was it how you thought it would be?
No, I went into it so naively, I think. And I think part of it is because, I'd had a lot of experience with the internet, but I had had no experience with pregnancy. And I think I had also spent a lot of my life, avoiding pregnancy and also just not being very curious about it, which I regret, just not knowing that much about it. And so I did really feel like I was behind and I needed to catch up.
Mhm.
But also I have this experience with the internet now, and especially then where because I write about internet culture, every pregnancy thing that came up, I was like, "Oh, let me try this out." And there's a bunch of silly stuff in it, and maybe I can write about it. And so I spent the first part of my pregnancy writing sort of about like all of the funny sort of aspects of pregnancy apps and stuff like that. And I was like, maybe I'll write an article about this. And then later, when my pregnancy became complex, at a time when I naively thought it was like you do a few tests early in the pregnancy, and if they're all clear, then that's it. I had this feeling that medicine was psychic or something and would know every eventuality very early on. And obviously, that's not the case. But when this happened later in my pregnancy than I expected was possible, I felt super superstitious about it, which is a very bizarre feeling for me. It's not something I feel a lot, but I felt like by writing all these funny notes about like how silly pregnancy is,
Mm.
I had brought something, I had cursed my pregnancy in some way. And I really felt like my internet searching was sort of informed by that just guilt and shame and feeling like I needed to figure something out because I had really messed up. It was my fault. Maybe if I hadn't done any particular thing, like taking a hot bath or something, I was just not suited to have a kid. I wasn't mature enough or
Mm.
enough of a good person.
Yeah.
Like all of these just sort of thoughts, I think, were fueling. It was like my phone, especially because all of this stuff was so fast moving and so sensitive. It was like I was talking to my husband about it and really nobody else. And so the internet really sort of became the thing that I was like talking to
Mhm.
about it because it was all I was thinking about at the time.
So we got genetic tests with our kids, and honestly, in retrospect, I think it was because the other people who were pregnant in my life were as well, and it was like another stop, you hit. And the first one, smooth sailing, check, check, everything's great, which in retrospect, I ended up getting induced, which I didn't see coming. It was really scary. And I still was like, I felt misled my whole pregnancy that everything was fine. And then it had this very traumatizing birth that messed me up for a long time. But then with my second one, they called me back and said there's a 30% chance he might have Down syndrome. And so I got a second test and they were going in vaginally and I could feel like, I don't know what the word is, some kind of contraction. So then they went in through my belly and took amniotic fluid and I felt this cramping. And then just as a kicker, we were moving the next day. And I knew was not cut out to raise a child with special needs to that extent as a second child. But I mean, having gone back, I'm like, I don't know what I would have done differently, any of it. Like, because on the one hand, if we hadn't gotten tested, we would have had the same kids that we have, and I don't know what the benefit is of that. And I mean, I don't know if you talk to expectant moms about if they go back and forth about the ups and downs of that genetic testing, but having gone through that, what do you think? Would you do that again the same way that you did?
Yeah. I mean, so BWS is something that is pretty rare. It's like 1 in 11,000 or something. That number is changing all the time. And the way that it presents itself it's much more difficult to test for than something like Down syndrome. Something that involves either a missing or an added chromosome is so much easier to see than this thing, which is like a deletion on a gene. And so I don't think, just given how rare it is and how sort of involved the testing is, I don't know if there's a future where, you know, you're like 10 weeks pregnant and you can get a test for so many things that it would tell you if your kid had BWS or something. But I have thought about how ultimately I felt really lucky that I got the test at the time I did
Mhm.
because it meant that I had the diagnosis before my son was born, but I didn't have it so early that I would have considered an abortion because I think what what surprised me so much was like just how much shame I felt
Mm.
about having a test result that was abnormal, even though it's something that, like, I wouldn't wish it on anyone and it's caused problems for my son. But it's something that we as a family are able to deal with, and that he's like a happy, healthy person. And I think that earlier in a pregnancy, my decision might have been so influenced by that shame and fear. And because I was, my knowledge about pregnancy itself was like so remedial. The idea that people get diagnoses like this, that a lot of kids and adults have genetic conditions, it was just like not something that I had thought about before I was confronted with it. And I think that was like beyond the specific information about like what are the medical realities of this condition, that was like the life experience and information that I was missing in order to make that decision. And so I'm grateful that I have that now, but I'm worried that I would have made a decision that never would have known this,
Mm-hmm.
and it would have just changed my life in a different way. But that would have just been like a lot of unnecessary grief, I think, for me and my family based on bad information. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Quinn, did you guys get that kind of testing?
So our journey was really IVF and miscarriage focused. Miscarriage? It's like my kid used to say Batman. Very strange. He used to go, no, Batman. I'm
That's
like,
funny.
Close.
One of Steve's like classic dads is just saying Spiderman instead of Spider-Man, but
Sure.
anyway,
Potato. Whatever you gonna do. Ours was, so we had it much earlier before any of this. Amanda, we got hitched. Our first thing we had was my wife was, let's say 34 or something like that. And so immediately they were like, well, if you're successful, you'll have a geriatric pregnancy. And she was like, excuse me, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? Because like you said, and I was just thinking about this. And again, the rest of my job is working on the societal infrastructure failures around everything. There's such a lack of education. We try for so long to not get pregnant. Why would you inform yourself on all these things that might be available to you or that might happen, considering how complicated human conception, pregnancy, and childbirth are? There's a really great book I've mentioned before by a woman named Kat Bohannon called Eve. I think it's How the Female Body Drove 200 million Years of Evolution. And it's fantastic and it's also funny. But one of her most striking points is like, even among chimps and our closest relatives, like we are profoundly bad at pregnancy and delivery, basically. Like the fact that we made it here is shocking. And that's still true considering these 4D exams and all these blood tests and all this stuff you can do, even 15 years ago when we could do it. But, our version of shame and lack of information was tried, it didn't work for a while. We tried IVF, rudimentary IVF with my wife's original OBGYN that she'd had for 20 something years, and that didn't work. And we went to another guy and immediately they were like, all right, let's start testing all this stuff. You tried your Clomid shots. Let's start testing. And I think maybe the hardest thing on my wife about all of it, the sort of the catalyst, was immediately they were like, your sperm's totally fine. That's not the problem. So immediately she was like, oh, so no matter what, it's my fault, right? The problem was no idea why or even what the problem was. We knew when they combined our stuff in the test tube on the side of the road in Los Angeles, it didn't work. A lot of eggs down to a little eggs combined and they went kaput. But we also did every test you could do. We did the genetic testing for our combinations for each of us, talked about our histories, family stuff, all that. Did I keep my laptop on my lap? Like all that shit, is she drinking, beneath the table, all that fucking, like you said, hot baths, all that stuff. But we never found an answer. And so again, this is why I asked you, like, when, did you go max pregnancy internet? Because for us, it was 2011-ish, basically 2009 to 2012, basically. When she was doing things and we would go into the IVF doctor and she'd be like, well, the internet says I got to eat meat if I want to get pregnant. And our doctor, this incredible person we owe our whole lives to, who is Indian, was like, okay, but if that was true, India wouldn't have babies. I don't know what to tell you. That's not science. I would love to be able to give you a simple answer for why you're on your 6th round, you've had 2 miscarriages. He's like, it would be amazing for me to be able to tell you that. It's like when people are like, you're cheering for climate change. I'm like, I am not. It is exhausting. I do not want to do this. I would love for it to be fucking wrong. She grew up in Rochester and Kodak dumped a bunch of shit in the water. Okay, maybe, sure, a bunch of her friends also had problems, but also look at all the other environmental stuff we did, like living in Los Angeles, I don't fucking know. So she just constantly felt this shame of, I have no idea why this keeps happening. It's obviously my fault. Now we're flipping through egg donor books, getting to that point. And it's this feeling of, oh God, I remember one night her crying, flipping through these egg books. And it's like, they're giving you the ladies where she went to college and her family history. And she's like, but those aren't me. But her also wrestling with, but should it be me? Because clearly I'm faulty. And you're like, Jesus Christ, this is a fucking train wreck, right? And it's because the problem, not because, but the lack of context and the lack of education and the lack of support. It's why so many women on Medicaid die in the first year after pregnancy, is because there's no follow-up appointments for the women. There are for the babies, right? It's just a profound lack of context. And so
Well,
you're
it's also,
unprepared to deal with any of it, is the point.
you also don't know how you're going to feel about it before you're in it. Because,
Yeah.
when you read stories about people getting, using a surrogate, for instance, and the internet will say, the internet hates surrogacy, that's for sure. And they'll say, you could have adopted, and there's so many things like that where
Sure,
same thing
bud.
with any aspect of children, was having
Yeah.
a school. What you could, if you're not in it, you're not
Oh
living
yeah,
that.
and by the way, that doesn't include at all the fact that how many shots a day were we giving my wife to try to make it work? Like the amount of hormones raging through her body, maxed out, does not
Yeah.
make for like
Yeah.
sane Googling, basically.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I don't know. That was our version of it, and I imagine it's only gotten profoundly worse with the disinformation and all that stuff at this point. But it's a clusterfuck, man. And like you said, then you get into the apps that all tell you like, hey, this is what your baby's gonna look like. It's a gummy bear, and now it's a watermelon. You're like, boom.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't get into the IVF apps, but I have friends who used them. And some of them, the doctors require you to use an app, which opens up all
crazy.
sorts of, I think,
Fucking
privacy
insane to
stuff.
me.
But yeah, it's
That's a version, and this is absolutely real. And they just published on this in the New York Times Magazine, or New York Times last week, about how many kids' schools compel kids to be on Snapchat for, sports teams and for school updates and things like that. And, on the one hand, don't ever do that. On the other hand, you have to do that. And so good luck with those, with all of those choices and things like that. And I mean, I know that you've touched on like the baby tech boom and baby tech. And I was just laughing because a cousin of mine is pregnant, and I was looking through her registry, and my oldest is 13. And it's already changed so much. All the things that, like the monitoring, I think it was kind of new on the scene to have monitors in daycares. And I had a friend who watched her baby on her phone. She would check in on him. And I would, on the one hand, congratulate myself for being so offline and just cool mom that I didn't check. But at the same time, I was like, maybe I would if it was available. It just wasn't available. So that was easy for me to feel good about myself.
No, yeah, I deeply feel like that's evil and they should not be available.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, I don't want a camera on me while I'm working. And I think that
God,
every
no.
working person should be afforded that.
This is the
Yeah.
only camera on me while I'm working, and it requires all of me to not be like a disgusting monster the entire time. I'm brain dead after this. I could always tell when my wife was watching whether it was, again, one of these fucking, what was the previous Google camera? Drop Cam. Where ours were Drop Cam. Remember that, Claire? A little company. It was one of the little first home video companies, and then Google bought them and, ruined it, whatever. That was what we used as our baby monitor at the time, because we had 3 under 3, and it was like Lord of the Flies at all times. But I could always tell when she was watching it, when she was out and about, because I would get a text that would say, hey, AT&T, you've used 70% of your mobile plan. And then in the next 5 minutes, it was like 75%, 95%. You're over. We are charging you. I was like, I love that you're checking in. I think it's so great. Could you get on Wi-Fi to do it?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
yeah,
pervasive.
it's more intense now. It's AI fueled like baby monitors where they're like mapping your baby's body and face and every move and like generating whatever insights into your child based on that.
And there's a little
ranking
sock.
your child versus other children, and also telling you like if the machine thinks that your child has stopped breathing.
Yeah, I've read about that one too. The little sock that will keep your baby from having SIDS, and that is horrifying. And I'm glad that wasn't the thing. Like when our thing was having a baby sleep on their back, and I remember my mom was really defensive because she was like, "You slept on your stomach, and they told us that was fine, and that was the way it was." And I was like, "I'm not blaming you for what you were told. I'm sure they're gonna have some other version of that, you know." And on the one hand, I'm like, oh, that's new. I think you've written about that, right? The really expensive baby sleep thing. But I probably would have taken that. I also, by the way, when my son goes to sleepaway camp, they post once a day a big drop of photos, and they have a professional photographer on staff. It's the wife of the camp manager, so it's not.
Sure.
Again, to me, I'm telling myself it's fine and normal. But I always check out the photo dump to see if I can see a picture of my kid in there and to see, look like he's having a good time. And even better, is it a good photo? And we can use that. So I know better.
Yeah.
No, I mean, my kid's going off the
I
swim
know.
camp this weekend. We don't really do phones or anything. They have an iPad, but it stays at home, and they basically can text their brothers and sisters, maybe an occasional uncle or aunt who are very annoying. But he was like, so how am I supposed to get in touch with you? This thing is Sunday to Thursday. And of course, because I'm a dick, I was like, you don't. That's the number one. But two, I was like, man, just do what you do at home. If you really need me, you just use one of your friends. Like all his friends all have my thing. They text me, Oliver wants you to come pick him up. And I usually go, no. But you could do that. But also I was like, there is a really, not to deprive him of, if he needs something, he won't. But more to deprive him of that experience of being actually untethered for your parents once you get to a certain age to do that. I know a lot of people do that when they send their kids to camp when they're 6 for 2 months. This is meaningful. I'm like, go be in it, man. Go do your thing.
Yeah.
And I love technology. I think it's, again, in the medical zone, in health, we have done incredible things. It's also incredibly inequitable. And for every time someone's, well, what if we could live forever? I'm like, I don't know. What if we just, made jobs affordable?
What if everyone
Like,
lived for a normal time?
Yeah, right. How about we average it out? We reduce stress and all weird. We know about inflammation, So I wrestle with that all the time. But yeah, I don't know. It's just so invasive and pervasive.
Amanda, do
I
you?
mean, I'm like you, Claire, where like if there is an image of my child, like I am looking at it, like I will look at it, which is why it's important to like for me to try to limit the amount of times that
Yeah.
occurs.
Well, yeah, and especially when it is not your image and you have to manipulate it, and you're like, this is a version of him that I would never see, and maybe this is his true self. I mean, I'm going very deep, part of it is that I went to that summer camp too, so I'm like, I hope they like it. I hope they're having a good time, but you have that sense of just maternal pride as well, which is, hard to shake as well when you're like, look what I made. What a cutie. Who could you put a cute, I may have seen it before. You have a picture of your kid and there's a towel over his head. So, or maybe and you're like, does anyone have a good exorcist in Brooklyn? And you can't see your kid, but you can see some chubby little feet under those. And I'm like, that is an adorable photo.
Adorable. I posted so many pictures of my kids on Instagram, and then when I wrote the book, I deleted all of them. And that's been good. But yeah, they're the most beautiful people in the world to me.
Mhm.
So of course, if you have an app that's show me the most beautiful thing that you see, it's my kid,
One of the reasons besides Claire's own writing, like that I identified with her parenting and the way she was sharing about her parenting before her podcast is the introductory in the Evil Witches blog, which is like, we are the people who shit on our kids and then go to bed scrolling through the pictures of them. And you're like, God damn it. It's so frustrating. True. You're like, shut up, go the fuck to bed. Let me look at pictures of you when you were 3.
I was feeling parental. I was in therapy yesterday. Thank God for therapy. But like I, on the one hand, was very proud that my kids were doing this rummage sale, because they really did it a whole cloth. They were technically selling things that other people have bought them at some point, and they were technically using their parents' printer to print up full color posters and things like that. But I also was proud that they had done this and were thinking, but also feeling guilty because I was so stressed out and so just inflamed. But I was feeling activated by the kids coming in and out of the house and the the door opening and shutting. And I was like, if I was a good mom, I would be out there enjoying it and like taking pictures and cheering them on instead of being like, you do, And so, but I have to remind myself, like, no, you know what? It's not even about me. That's always like the hardest pill to swallow. It's
And
like,
increasingly not about you, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Is like, you don't even enter in there's things where they're like, what's the great Mad Men line? I don't think much of you or whatever. And I don't ever think of you. That's what it's becoming truly with my kids, where they're like, I haven't entered their consciousness.
I feel like I had a few sort of like idealized impressions of what it would be like to have kids. And now if one of those things just sort of like accidentally happens like once every few months, it's like the best thing ever. I don't know. I realized the other day that I was wearing a dress and my 3-year-old was playing under it. And I was like, oh my God. I was thinking, oh my God, it's happening. It's like a mom thing that I imagined happening, and it only lasts for a few seconds. So I'm like, just be cool. It's happening. But like most of the time, it's like this vlog.
Yeah. Anything, something as good as happening, you can never let your kids know what's happening, because then they will absolutely stop. That's why I've said in the past, and I recommend parents make audio recordings and not video recordings when their kids are unselfconsciously playing or doing something, because they won't stop. If they see the camera come out, everything changes. But if you just click on the voice recorder, and often it's things like playing a board game or singing in the shower or just talking rules of a game that they just made up on the spot, but it's a different thing when they know you're copying it.
I love talking to my kids on the phone. We did so much FaceTime when they were really little, and now just talking to them on the phone with no video is so great. So bad.
We got a bunch of those tin can phones. Have you heard about those?
Yeah, we got one too.
Yeah, we
have one too. We should be talking on the tin can.
We need each other's codes, guys. They're great. Are they perfect? No, but they're great. They're what we were looking for. I even let them have them in their rooms, which my parents, no fucking way you're getting a phone in your room. But I'm like, I am trying to fight the darkness here. And it's fun. Yeah. They'll just call me in the middle of the day and they're like, how you doing? And I'm like, this is great. This is great.
Must be nice.
I need to give my 5-year-old an 8th grader's tin can code. Just see what happens.
You should call You should call my son. It is very cute when he's nice to younger boys or younger kids and he's sweet with them. And it is charming to see. Although, it's easy to feel big when you're with littler kids. But Amanda, was there anything online either now or earlier in your parenthood that was good for you, that brought you either pleasure or made you feel more seen or gave you some information that you actually did or that was helpful?
Yeah, I mean, once my kid got a real diagnosis, I joined a couple of Facebook groups that are dedicated to that condition. And it's just the perfect use of Facebook, where my kid has a condition that is rare enough that you're not running into people whose kids have that or adults who have it. Although through the experience of writing this book, I did meet some parents in Brooklyn who came to my book events. They were like, we have a kid who has BWS. I was like, that's so amazing and insane. And I could have randomly met them. But the point is, there are people from all over the world, not just kids, adults. And they're just people who have insight into very specific things that nobody I know could give me advice on. My son, when he was 3, had to have something called a tongue reduction surgery. Words that I had never imagined going together. And I don't know that it helped. It was horrible. It was like the worst experience of his young life. And having just people who had done that a year ago when their kid was the same age was just so helpful, who I never would have met otherwise. So that was like a rare sort of bright spot.
Yeah.
And that was only after I had enough information to find the people that I really needed.
Yeah.
When I had less information, it was like impossible to find something like that.
Everything leads to autism, first of all. Whatever you Google. Yes. I remember, I think my son was a newborn and he was snoring, and I Googled baby snoring, and immediately it's like a sign of autism. And he did, and to this day, he headbangs when he sleeps. It's just, it's a thing some kids and some people do with a soothing technique. But Google headbanging and kids, and you're in for a wild ride, which is why I wrote purposely something trying to change the Google algorithm that was like, here's something that shows I'm just one person who can tell you that your kid could be a headbanger, and it doesn't mean that they're a sociopath. which is what some guy who I went to high school with told me in a private Facebook message when I mentioned head begging. He's like, I'm just telling you, it's a red flag. Your kid is in for a lot of trouble. And I was like, fuck you, whoever you are. And, but I also remember I had this Facebook group. The original Evil Witches was on Facebook. And there was a friend who her son's skull was kind of big, and babies all have big heads, right? And that is something that you can Google and send you to hell with. And it turned out, someone pointed out, like, I think this might be, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but her son had to have a craniectomy, like he did have, let's say it was encephalitis or something like that. And, fortunately she was in a safe place where someone loving could say, you might want to get this checked out, as opposed to like instant,
Your
diagnosis
boyfriend
of,
from high school. Like your kid's gonna murder. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it can cut so many different ways, and there's when you're at your most vulnerable, it is. I'm just glad, honestly, that I didn't have kids when Instagram was a thing, a real thing, or TikTok was a thing, and this like trad wife bullshit. I'm strong enough to know my own way, but not all the time. So
the parenting advice world, I think, is like started to innovate all of these new acronyms and like euphemisms for different types of children, like spicy, neurodivergent, deeply feeling
extra
kids.
spiriting.
Yeah, stuff that might be helpful when you're searching. If you're like, don't give me the standard issue advice, because that's not working on my child. But there is something that is dispiriting about this emotional branding of the children that makes them a kind of citizen of Instagram, even though they're not on it.
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
That's a really good observation. I think some of it is like a soft launch for neurodiversity of some sort, where a parent's not. I mean, frankly, you just can't diagnose certain kids for a certain age. But I was like this too, where I was like, I don't want to have a kid with ADHD, because kids with ADHD, especially boys, are loud and annoying, and nobody likes them and nobody wants them. And so I had a book called, I think it was called Your Spirited Child or something like that. I think Emily Gould and I talked about this too. And where you're like not ready for ADHD, but it's almost like just, being like, okay, so your kid is clinically extra. So, now I don't remember learning anything good about it, but we still have the book.
So 5-year-old, what is their technology relationship?
Yeah.
If at all, is it just bluey, like when you put it on, or what are we dealing with?
I mean, he knows how to navigate the television now. So he basically chooses what he wants to watch, and it's usually Pokemon. It's like there's a big Pokemon kick in his school right now. But he doesn't, this is like my line in the sand is like YouTube videos. So he doesn't watch YouTube videos like on the TV. But he was in the bath the other day, was talking to himself, and started saying YouTube phrases. He was like, subscribe to my channel. And it's because at his school, he goes to school and then he goes to after school. And I get it. That's a really long time. I wish it wasn't the case. It's a long time for teachers. It's a long time for my child. They're showing them YouTube videos at some point, and he's picking up his language. So it's, it's like he doesn't watch YouTube videos at home, but he's seeing them.
Yeah. I mean, when they're not in your control, you got to let some things go. And when the shit hits the fan, like during COVID, like we were all watching whoever that lady was. There's some lady who did yoga for kids, and we all were like, please just teach my kid yoga for 2 hours, and hopefully he'll tune in and be out of my hair. And didn't work. And then you're like, fine, just fucking Mr. Beast or whatever it is. Like it does get. I mean, Quinn, how about your kids? I know how you feel about that kind of stuff, but like when your kids are, and you're not over
when they're
them.
with friends and shit, what are you gonna do, as long as it's not terrible stuff, and you hope if the parents are somewhat around, they can intervene in that case.
But define terrible, like where, how terrible is terrible.
I mean, Justice Potter, when you see it, Claire, come on.
Well, like Mr. Beast, is that terrible, or is that?
It's just, it's fucking. We wouldn't watch that shit at our. Everything is true, right? Has Mr. Beast raised all this money for various charities and people? 100%. Are his business methods and things completely fucked up? Probably. it's all a nightmare. Would we watch that shit at home? No, not really. My wife's a screenwriter. She makes movies and shit like that. And so we're like, look, we love movies. We love TV. You can watch real stuff that's on, and it's great. Not that there's not great stuff on YouTube, but it's difficult to go from the iTunes algorithm. No one's going to take you from Wicked to an ISIS recruitment video, but YouTube might.
Right.
There's a
I
way
mean,
to Kevin
I do
Bacon
think
that.
the things my kids watch on TV are generally very shitty. Seems, with all due respect to the people who wrote it, seems like an AI wrote it, even though
Mhm.
it's on Disney.
Mm-hmm.
It's Mickey Mouse Clubhouse stuff. For a while, I was like trying to control that. I was like, my kids are never going to watch Paw Patrol.
Mm.
And then my son,
Famous
then
last
this is
word.
what happened. My son was in the hospital. He was in the hospital, and there's a hospital TV, and we're like going through it, and there's the Paw Patrol movie, and he's like, I want to watch that. And I'm like, you got me.
Yeah.
You're in the
Yep.
hospital.
You're in the fucking hospital having a tongue reduction. You
Yeah.
can watch all the
Got
Paw
me.
Patrol you
Yeah.
want. God damn it.
So we watch that, and now my 3-year-old loves Paw Patrol. He watches it all the time. I see him like
Big fan of the
basically
police.
crying, watching the dogs. He's moved emotionally by them.
Well,
Whatever. And then I tried to talk to my kids about how I don't like the police dog, and that backfired. Because
Oh,
they
I
don't,
went down that road.
they don't
They
don't
were
care,
like,
but I like.
no one
I'm
cares
like, yo,
what you
wow,
think.
no one wants to hear
firefighter
that,
dog's really
yeah.
helping people.
Yeah,
It's really
and
saving
then
people's
yeah,
lives.
kids. It's hard to know when to introduce like all cops are bastards to kids when you're like, listen, go find the helpers, but also no.
Amanda,
And,
Claire would not do it while they're watching in an opportune time. She would do one of her, we call them Claire's drive-bys, where they're really genuinely minding their own business, doing something formative and enriching. And she'd drive by and be like, don't get a girl pregnant.
Yeah, we're trying to explain the idea of don't shit where you eat yesterday to James, who is 10, I he's 11, and that didn't quite stick, but hopefully someday when he gets a job, he won't screw someone at his birth off. But he'll remember. He's like, remember at his grandpa's
Yeah, you
birthday
got to get
dinner.
plant the seed.
Yeah.
Literally.
Quinn, do you
Um,
ever watch video? Do you with your boys? I presume maybe Charlotte too. I don't want to be sexist. Do you ever watch
Typical.
video? Do you ever watch videos of people playing video games with them?
No, Claire, no, just play. I'm like, look, if you want to watch that, how about you watch me smoke you in Mario Kart? Like, how about we watch that instead? No.
There's a
No.
series that Steve watches with the boys called Let's Game It Out, and I think it's a YouTube series, and this guy purposely plays bad video games, and it's like a Mystery Science Theater 3000, but of video games, and so, like, that's when I walk in and they're doing that, I'm like, time for me to take a shower, like, that's like Star Wars, I'm like, that's for you guys, and
No.
not for me.
And I know I'm old and cranky. I'm self-aware enough to know I'm old and cranky, and maybe there's something fun in that. And did half the shit we watch, was it toxic? Much of it, but
Right.
I'm old.
Amanda, what are you taking in right now, culture-wise, that is giving you pleasure and joy that, just as someone walking around the planet Earth, not necessarily professionally, what are you taking in that makes you happy?
Yeah, I felt like my attention span has gotten so bad recently that it's been difficult for me to watch an episode of television. But I'm watching Widow's Bay right now,
Oh, I heard
and
it's
it's so
great.
good.
Steve loves
Yeah,
that, my husband.
it's really lovely. It's like genuinely scary. Where I was watching it one night when my husband was out of town, and I was like, I can't sleep in a bed alone after watching it. But it's also very funny. So
Cool. I was thinking of you because I've been listening to the Lena Dunham book, and I thought I wouldn't identify with it at all because I'm a Zennial born in 1979 that sort of lost micro generation. And I think of her as like extremely millennial. And I was like, I'll never identify with this. And aside from all her chronic health conditions, which I'm happy, blessedly, to not identify with, I identify with this so much in terms of being extra worried about letting people down and the pressure of creativity and the heartache of experimenting in art and not getting paid for it, and then suddenly getting paid for it, and it's not quite as fun as it was when it was just cheap and messy, and you were playing around. And so I'm
working with women of other generations,
mothers,
how difficult, difficult
feeling like like shouldering your mother's resentment of you for maybe having a life that she was maybe aspiring to in a certain way.
Right.
Like
And
it's a
then
lot.
casting her in a movie.
Yeah, it's a lot. I am surprised by how much I'm enjoying it, but it's really sad at the same time. So I may rewatch Girls at some point, just like with fresh eyes and not be such a hater. But
It's really nice to watch it. I don't know what you were doing professionally at the time if you had to blog about girls, but I wrote about girls so much, and it really it ruins it to have to be like, okay, I'm like searching for the tea
yeah,
in this episode. It's so nice to watch it where like all of those conversations are in the past and it's just TV. It's
back
great.
before I had kids, I was a TV critic for the AV Club, and I would have to watch things and immediately turn it around and post it online. And God forbid you had a single typo. Nobody was proofreading it, but if you did, they would like, and it was such a pleasure afterwards just to quit that job and just watch TV and not have a take and not have any kind of thought, and just let it wash over you. And you are not newslettering, right? Are you one of the proud who is not have a newsletter right
I
now?
think she is.
I
Is it
don't.
called a job? You have a job?
I got a job. I have a job. I have a job writing for the New York Times. And some people who write for the New York Times also have newsletters,
Yeah.
but I don't currently.
Keep it up. Keep
And
rolling.
I like that
Yeah.
for me now. I am in a place that I never thought that I would be, because I, again, was very naive about it, where it's like, my kids take a lot out of me. I always keep thinking like, oh, when they're out of the baby stage, like when the little one is like potty trained, like when this, and like, you're just like never over the hump. And so, I'm glad to be free of like the sort of like demands of that a newsletter would require right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm just looking for sort of like funny stories. So if anything funny happens to you,
Okay. We'll let you know.
I don't
Well,
do
for
anything.
sure, let you know. Amanda, I just love your work so much, and I like you handle internet and culture in a really intelligent way without taking the fun out of it, but also being really circumspect. And I'm happy that you are a parent as well, and that you can fold that perspective in as well. And I always marvel over like how much of my brain is wasted on pop culture and internet stuff, but it's kind of fun to share it with my kids as they get older. I think I use the phrase rage bait in conversation, and my kids were shocked that I knew that phrase. And so as much as the internet can tear me apart, it kind of keeps me young in a certain way as well. So, I'm glad you're out there, trying to bring a little bit of civility and intellect to it.
Amanda, I won't ask how old you are, but Claire, have you used any internet terms, or I guess just terms that were so profound to us growing up that your kids have no idea? Because I called something tight the other day, and my kids were like,
wow.
they genuinely were like, what? It wasn't like, oh, that's cringe. They had no idea. And I was like, tight was it? Okay. If you were tight, holy shit.
I think I call my kids homie sometimes, and I don't even know if they hear me. But, I mean, that's like pre-internet even. I mean, that, in living color. So, yeah.
I feel like my kids and I are at this great place right now where we both learn about internet things really late, because it has to trickle through the entire culture and get down to kindergartners and get to them. So my kindergartner thinks 6, 7 is really funny.
The funniest shit.
And I'm like, older kids don't do that anymore, whatever.
Yeah.
But to him, it's the funniest thing ever. And kids are always counting from 6 to 7. It just comes up all the time. And so it's sort of nice where it's like they don't know anything that I don't know, slowly starting to become aware of things.
The best thing about 6, 7 is that you don't need to know anything about it. There's no background to it.
There's nothing.
There's nothing. Yeah, which is sort of the most pure thing. It's like rock and roll and Elvis and, like copacetic and all the, dumb culture.
Sure.
All right, Amanda, thank you so much for taking the time and being on our podcast.
Truly.
And if we want to direct people, should we just have them follow you in the New York Times? I know you have a byline kind of page on there, and buy your book, right? Is it in a second printing yet, or what is the?
It is. It just came out in paperback.
Okay.
Good for the beach.
It's a little more affordable, easier to carry around.
Nice. Oh, it's called Second Life: Having a Child in the Digital Age is the name of the book, of course.
And you can follow me on Instagram, which I'm never going to quit. My handle. What's my handle? Do people say that anymore?
Sure.
It's Hess.
Okay, perfect. Well, congratulations to your
It's a tight handle.
It's fresh. It's dope. Congratulations to your graduate. And I
Big
hope that
ceremony.
the speeches are not too long. There'll be all these 7-year-olds being like, I was in your shoes. I can't believe it's been 1 year since
know.
I was, and now I know everything that you'll know in your
Idiots.
first grade. But
Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Hope you don't regret
Thank you
it.
so much. It was really fun.
Head to notrightnow.show for more, or send us feedback, questions, horror stories, doxing, whatever it is, at questions@notrightnow.show.